First, let's talk about what you're eating, your food, okay? There's a list of things that lead to too many carbohydrates in your diet and too much inflammation. Inflammation is another thing that can mess with your insulin, your cortisol, and your aromatase, okay? So first thing you got to get completely out of your diet is all sugars, whether added sugar in junk food or even natural sugar in things like fruit juices, bananas, and grapes, and raisins. All those things have way too much sugar. That's going to spike your insulin, and then it's going to cause the cascaded events I talked about earlier. The second thing you got to get rid of is all of the grains, rice, oats, wheat, corn. All those things break down immediately into sugar as soon as you swallow them. Therefore, we're right back to the insulin problem I talked about earlier. Any starchy vegetable, like any potato, turnips, basically any root vegetable that grows under the ground is going to be too high in starches. You have an enzyme in your mouth called amylase. As you're chewing up that potato, you're already breaking down the starch into sugar. Again, back to the insulin and aromatase stuff I talked about earlier. You gotta stop the sugars and the starches and the grains. The third thing is vegetable seed oils, whether it's canola oil, soybean oil, peanut oil, corn oil, safflower oil. All of these are artificially chemically made in chemical factories. They lead to insulin resistance and they lead to inflammation in your body. You got to get rid of all these. Now, it's true, if you just stop eating junk food that comes in boxes and bags, you can get rid of most of those, but you have to be very careful about switching from that unhealthy diet to a healthy diet of fruit smoothies and sweet potatoes and whole grain breads, because you're still going to be getting way too much sugar. Insulin's chronically high, aromatase is mucked up, you got man boobs, okay? So the next thing you got to get rid of is alcohol. Now, for most of you watching this, you probably drink beer. Most guys with man boobs love beer. Beer is high in carbohydrates, and then also the alcohol can mess around with your aromatase activity as well. You got to stop the beer. 100%. Come on, we're grown men here. You can't be drinking beer every day. You got to stop the wine. Most wine has way too much sugar in it, too many carbohydrates, and it also has the alcohol. If you're going to be a grown-up and drink alcohol, then drink alcohol like a grown-up. Have an ounce of gin with soda and a twist of lime. That has 0 carbohydrates. It does have the alcohol, but you're not adding the alcohol plus all the carbohydrates. First of all, why are you doing that? Secondly, you're getting way too many carbohydrates along with the alcohol. That's going to give you man boobs. You got to cut back on the alcohol. And if you are going to drink, make sure you drink a grown-up man drink. Next is plastics. Now let's talk about this in more detail. You may have heard about this, but this is a huge deal. So if you're eating or drinking anything that is room temperature or above, in a plastic cup, in a plastic bowl, a plastic plate, the plastics, which are very estrogenic, not only do they mimic estrogen in your body, but they can mess around with your aromatase activity once again. Even paper plates and paper bowls are coated in the plastic. And when you put hot food on that paper plate, you are leaching some of that estrogenic plastic into your food. Using plastic cutlery, spoons and forks and knives on food that's room temperature or above, you are ingesting plastic, which is going to mess up your estrogen to testosterone ratio and increase your risk of having man boobs. There's a great book out there called Estrogeneration by my friend Dr. Anthony J. I'm going to put a link down in the show notes below to that book. Now the next thing is medications. Yeah, prescription medications that you might get from your doctor for a mental issue, for a physical issue. I've got a list down in the show notes of all the medications that have been associated with developing man boobs or man boobs getting worse. Now, I ranked this list from the most important to probably the least important. So don't go to your doctor and yell and have him get him off your depression medication and think you've solved your problem. Your food is the number one thing. You've got to cut down on the carbohydrates that you eat and drink. You've got to get rid of the grains. You've got to get rid of the vegetable seed oils, or there's really no hope you're ever going to get rid of your man boobs unless you have them chopped off by a plastic surgeon. I said earlier that moving more and eating less is not going to help your man boobs. Special exercises is not going to help, but there is a specific style of exercise that might help you reduce your man boobs a little bit while you're working on the most important steps I talked about above, and that's high intensity interval training. This has actually been shown to raise your testosterone level, raise your human growth hormones, and that's going to make everything look better, feel better, and act better. And so if you want to exercise, I would recommend using a high intensity interval training regimen. There's a ton of videos on YouTube about that you can check out. And I recommend that. That's probably going to help you be in better shape. It's going to help you burn fat over your entire body, and it's going to help your brain be healthier too. But high intensity interval training is not the answer to man boobs. The steps I list first, those are the answer. HIIT might help a little bit. If you missed some of the things I talked about, you can go back and watch this video again. And please, please share this video with your buddies who have man boobs. They might be temporarily offended that you shared that with them, but I promise you, in the long run, they're gonna thank you and maybe even give you a bro hug. That's exactly what I did. I did a few years of keto, and now I'm carnivore, and my man boobs are a distant, sad memory. And soon, yours can be too. If you haven't done so, please take a second, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell button right beside the subscribe button, so every time I post a video like this, you'll get a notification. This is Dr. Barry. I'll see you next time.